The bus was crowded that afternoon, its seats filling up quickly as passengers hurried on board. Some carried bags stuffed with groceries, others clutched briefcases, and a few simply looked tired from a long day. The air was warm, heavy with the smell of travel and chatter. As people searched for their assigned seats, among the passengers was a young black man, neatly dressed and polite in his manner. He held his ticket firmly in hand, scanning the row numbers carefully. After a few steps down the aisle, he reached his spot. But when he looked at the seat that was supposed to be his, he stopped. A boy, not much older than a teenager, was already sitting there. His legs were stretched wide across the aisle, his arms crossed with casual arrogance. He was chewing gum loudly, tapping his foot against the floor without a care in the world. He looked up briefly, noticing the man standing beside him, but didn't move an inch. The black passenger cleared his throat politely. "Excuse me," he said calmly. "I believe you're in my seat. This is number 12. He showed his ticket as proof, his tone respectful and without hostility. The boy glanced at the ticket, then smirked. "Yeah, well, I'm comfortable here," he replied. "Find another seat." His voice was sharp, careless, and filled with arrogance. The man blinked in surprise, unsure he had heard correctly. He tried again, keeping his voice steady. "I understand, but this seat is assigned to me. If you don't mind," the boy cut him off with a laugh, loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "I said I'm not moving. What's the big deal? Sit somewhere else." His smirk grew wider, as if he enjoyed the discomfort he was causing. The surrounding passengers began to glance toward the scene. Some looked away quickly, pretending not to notice. Others watched quietly, sensing trouble brewing. The tension crept into the air like a storm cloud. The man's expression stayed calm, though inside he felt the sting of disrespect. He wasn't angry, yet just disappointed. He had asked politely, shown proof, and still he was being denied what was rightfully his. "Please," he said once more, his tone still even. "This is my seat." The boy leaned back in the chair, folding his arms with mock pride. "Not anymore, it isn't. I got here first, and I'm not moving. Deal with it." His words dripped with defiance. Then came the remark that made the silence in the bus deepen. The boy muttered, just loud enough for others to hear, "Besides, why should I move for you?" His tone was filled with ugly prejudice, the kind that didn't need to be shouted to sting. Several passengers shifted uncomfortably. One woman clutched her bag tighter, looking down at the floor. A man near the window frowned, shaking his head slightly. Everyone had heard it. No one could ignore it now. The black passenger straightened, his face calm, but his eyes sharp. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't lash out. Instead, he stood silently for a moment, letting the weight of the boy's words linger in the air. His composure made the boy even more irritated. "Why are you just standing there?" the boy sneered. "What are you going to do? Cry about it?" He laughed again, his arrogance echoing down the aisle. The bus grew quieter. Conversations that had filled the air moments ago faded into silence. The scene had become the center of attention. Some passengers exchanged glances, silently asking each other whether someone should intervene. But no one moved yet. The man's dignity stood in stark contrast to the boy's arrogance. He could have shouted. He could have argued. But instead, he kept his voice steady, his posture strong. "I will not argue with you," he said softly. "But this is my seat, and you know it." The boy rolled his eyes dramatically and looked around, as if seeking support. "See?" he said loudly, gesturing toward the man. "He's making a big deal over nothing. Can't he just sit somewhere else?" But no one laughed with him. No one supported him. Instead, the silence of the passengers became heavier, pressing down on the boy like a weight. His smirk faltered for the briefest moment, but he quickly masked it with another arrogant grin. The black passenger remained where he stood, not backing down, but not losing his temper either. His quiet dignity made the boy's behavior look smaller, weaker. Even though the boy still acted as if he had control, in that moment, the conflict had begun. It was no longer about a seat. It was about respect. It was about prejudice. It was about one boy's arrogance crashing against one man's dignity. The passengers could feel it. They knew this was only the beginning, and something was about to change. The boy didn't realize it yet, but his refusal had set events in motion that would soon make him regret every word he had spoken. The air inside the bus was no longer filled with the normal chatter of passengers. Instead, it was heavy, thick with unease. The boy lounged arrogantly in the seat, his smirk wide, while the rightful passenger still stood calmly beside him, ticket in hand. The quiet dignity of the man contrasted sharply with the boy's open defiance. For a while, nobody moved. Passengers shifted uncomfortably in their seats, whispering in hushed tones. Some stared straight ahead, as if pretending nothing was happening. Others leaned slightly into the aisle, their eyes flicking between the man and the boy, waiting to see what would unfold. A woman near the front whispered to her husband, "Did you hear what he said?" That was racist. Her husband frowned, nodding. Yes, everyone heard. Disgusting, but they did not raise their voices. Fear of confrontation kept them quiet. In the back, a group of young men exchanged glances. One of them muttered under his breath, "That kid is asking for trouble." His friend replied, "He's lucky the man is calm. Anyone else would have dragged him out already." They chuckled quietly. But there was no amusement in their tone was disbelief. The boy, noticing the silence and stares, mistook it for power. He leaned back further in the seat, stretching his legs wider into the aisle as though to claim more space. He tapped his shoes against the floor, smirking. "See," he said loudly enough for people nearby to hear. "Nobody cares. Just sit somewhere else, old man." The black passenger's eyes didn't waver. He didn't flinch, didn't raise his voice. Instead, he simply stood straighter, his quiet presence growing stronger with each moment. The boy's arrogance was noise. The man's silence was weight. More whispers spread across the cabin. A young mother holding her child frowned at the boy and whispered, "He's teaching hate to himself at such a young age." Another passenger muttered, "Why doesn't someone stop him?" "This is wrong." The bus driver glanced in the mirror, his brows furrowing. He could feel the tension radiating from the passengers, but the vehicle was already moving. Confronting the situation would have to wait until the next stop. As the bus rolled on, the atmosphere became almost unbearable. The passengers weren't just watching anymore, they were judging. Their eyes cut into the boy like daggers, though none of them spoke directly yet. The weight of their disapproval pressed heavily on him, though he pretended not to notice. One elderly man finally broke the silence. He leaned forward, his voice firm but calm. "Young man," he said to the boy, "that seat doesn't belong to you. Stop embarrassing yourself and give it up." Gasps fluttered through the bus. The boy's smirk faltered. For the first time, someone had spoken against him out loud. His cheeks flushed, but he quickly snapped back. "Mind your business, old man. I'm sitting here." End of story. The elderly man shook his head slowly. "No, it's not the end of the story. Everyone here can see what you're doing. Everyone here knows it's wrong." His words carried weight, echoing louder than the boy's arrogance. Several passengers nodded in agreement. A young woman added softly, "He's right. That seat belongs to him. Stop acting like a child." The boy's face reddened. He looked around, realizing the stares were no longer silent. The whispers had turned into voices, the judgment now open. He wasn't being admired for his boldness. He was being condemned for his disrespect. The black passenger still hadn't moved. His calmness only made the boy's arrogance look smaller. His silence had drawn the crowd to his side without him saying much at all. The boy tried to laugh, but it came out forced. "What? All of you against me now? Big deal." I'm still not moving, but the confidence in his voice was cracking. The passengers were no longer neutral. The tide had shifted. Their disapproval filled the air, making the boy shrink into the very seat he had tried to claim as his own. Every word he spoke now only dug his hole deeper. The bus grew louder as more passengers joined in. "Move already." Someone shouted from the back. "Stop disrespecting him." Another added. The boy's smirk finally faded, his body stiffening. The black passenger then spoke. His voice calm, but carrying the strength of truth. "You see?" he said softly, looking at the boy. "Respect is something you cannot steal. No matter how loudly you refuse, everyone here knows the truth." The bus went quiet again. But this time it wasn't uncomfortable, was heavy with anticipation. The crowd had chosen its side. The boy's arrogance had been exposed, and his power was slipping away. The public reaction had turned the tables. What began as silent disapproval had grown into collective judgment, a force the boy could no longer ignore. He didn't know it yet, but his regret had already begun. The bus was no longer on the boy's side. What had begun as whispers had turned into clear voices, all against him. Every pair of eyes in the cabin now felt like a spotlight burning into him. The elderly man's calm rebuke, the young woman's firm voice, and the quiet strength of the black passenger had all combined to strip away his false confidence. The boy tried to lean back casually, but his body betrayed him. His jaw tightened, his hands clenched, and his smirk was gone. The black passenger remained calm, standing tall with dignity. His ticket still rested in his hand, proof of what everyone already knew, that the seat belonged to him. He had said little, but his silence had been louder than the boy's arrogance. The passengers had seen it, and they had chosen their side. The bus came to its next stop with a hiss of brakes. The driver stood, his expression stern, his patience gone. He had been watching through the mirror long enough. Now, with the bus still and the doors open, stepped into the aisle and faced the boy. "You," the driver said firmly, his voice echoing through the cabin. "Get up." The boy froze. "What? Why me?" he stammered, his earlier arrogance shrinking into panic. "I didn't do anything wrong." The driver's eyes narrowed. "You refused to give up a seat that wasn't yours? You disrespected a passenger in front of everyone. Enough is enough. Move." The passengers murmured in agreement. "About time," someone muttered. Another passenger nodded and added, "He doesn't deserve to sit there." The boy's face burned with humiliation. He looked around desperately, searching for even one sympathetic face, but there were none. The crowd that had once stayed silent was now united against him. Every glance told him the same thing. You are wrong. You are out of line. The boy tried to protest one last time. "But I'm already sitting here. Why can't he enough?" The driver barked, his voice sharp. "Either you move, or you get off this bus." Gasps rippled through the cabin. The boy's eyes widened. Being thrown off the bus, in front of everyone. The thought sent a wave of shame crashing over him. He glanced at the black passenger, who still stood silently, his face calm, his dignity untouched. For the first time, the boy truly saw the difference between them. Arrogance had made him small, but dignity had made the other man great. Slowly, reluctantly, the boy stood. His legs shook as he stepped out of the seat, his head hanging low. The passengers didn't clap or cheer loudly, they didn't need to. Their approving nods, their satisfied expressions, were enough. Justice had already been served. The black passenger quietly sat down in his rightful seat. He didn't gloat, didn't smirk, didn't say a cruel word. He simply adjusted his bag, looked out the window, and carried himself with the same calm dignity he had shown from the beginning. His silence spoke volumes. Respect doesn't need revenge. Truth speaks for itself. The boy slumped into an empty seat at the back of the bus, his face red with humiliation. The whispers returned, but now they were about him. He deserved it, one woman said. That's what happens when you disrespect people, another added. Each word felt like a stone against the boy's pride. The driver returned to his seat and restarted the engine. The bus moved forward again, but the mood had changed. The tension had lifted. Passengers chatted quietly once more, but with a sense of relief. The storm had passed, and justice had been restored. The boy sat in silence, staring at the floor. His earlier arrogance replayed in his mind, each word he had spoken now sounding foolish and cruel. He remembered the smirk he had worn, the laughter he had forced, the remark he had muttered. Now, instead of feeling powerful, he felt ashamed. His chest tightened with regret. He thought of how quickly the room had turned against him. How silence had turned into whispers, whispers into voices, and voices into judgment. He had believed nobody would care. But in the end, everyone cared. Everyone had seen him for what he wasn't. They had all chosen to stand against him. The regret hit him harder than anything else. It wasn't just that he lost the seat. It was that he lost his pride in front of everyone. Meanwhile, the black passenger sat tall, his calmness unshaken. He hadn't needed to shout or fight. His dignity had spoken louder than any insult. The passengers admired him for it, and silently. They respected him even more. The boy glanced up once, his eyes meeting the man's briefly. But the man didn't glare, didn't smirk. His gaze was steady, almost forgiving, as if saying, "Learn from this. Don't repeat it." That quiet strength pierced deeper than anger ever could. The ride continued, but for the boy, the journey had changed. He had boarded the bus full of arrogance, mocking, and disrespectful. Now he sat quietly at the back, his pride shattered, his lesson heavy, and though he didn't say it out loud, inside he knew he would never forget this day. The day he refused to move, the day he mocked with arrogance, and the day he instantly regretted it.